Don't mind if I look tired. It's just because I am. Cue the intro. Hello, everyone. I am a bringer of light, even in the night. Moon here. So as the title says, I'm going to be talking about 10 things that I've learned while on my spiritual journey. Quick disclaimer before I get started. Everyone's journey is specific and everyone's journey is different. So if you feel like you come to different conclusions or maybe you feel a certain way because you haven't gotten to the point that I've gotten to, it's fine, Like I said, everyone's journey is different and specific to them. So just keep in mind that this is just my personal experience. So the first thing that I've learned is that I am on my own time, which basically means my growth, my healing, anything really that has to do with me, I'm on my own time, which means no one can rush me to heal. No one can try to give me a certain time frame in which I'm supposed to be better. This is my journey. It really only affects me, and you heal on your own time. You heal at your own pace, whether that be, a few months, a couple years, whatever it is, work at your own pace. However, in that same breath, I also say, even though you are on your own time, don't let pain linger. It's better to get help sooner rather than later. It helps a lot not to sit on these emotions, because when you sit with these emotions for a long period of time, they tend to stew. And then these simple emotions that you may have had in the moment turn into something more complex. And when that happens, it's harder to, work through them. The second thing I've learned, and this is something, a kind of hard pill to swallow, is that sometimes I am the problem. And what I mean by that is that I kind of came to the conclusion that there is a part of my trauma that is my fault. And I don't mean that in a necessarily way like I blame myself. Like, it's not like that. It's more of a realization that I could have avoided a lot of my pent-up emotions if I had spoke out when they initially happened. Because when I went through a lot of things I went through in my childhood, I kept a secret because I didn't feel like I had the space to be open with my emotions. But now that I'm older, I'm kind of realizing that, like, no one told me that. I just kind of assumed that that was the situation I'm in. And don't get me wrong, I still kind of stick to that belief that I wasn't really in like a super emotional household. However, I still wish that, well, not wish. Looking back, I would have still at least voiced what was going on with me, because it may have helped me now. I do personally believe that if I had spoke out about what was going on with me, while it was happening, I probably wouldn't have as many issues with that trauma today. And, this also goes into, other situations, not just with that specific, trauma. It also goes into, my attitude. Because I had an attitude problem. Because I was so afraid of letting my guard down that I felt like I always had to be on edge. I felt like I always had to be, kind of like separate, because I felt like I, always had to be in a mode to protect myself, because I was in a situation where I was bullied for many years throughout most of my school life. So because of that, I treated my at-home life like I was at school. So I stayed on defense. And yes, that is a product of, things going on in my environment and stuff like that. But that continued even after the bullying stopped. And I was so set in my ways that I can admit that now that I kind of used the bullying as an excuse. Ooh, that light is really glaring. But I used the bullying as an excuse to basically just be mean and hateful because it was easy. So now I've kind of made a vow to just be more positive. No matter what the situation is, I'm always going to try and be positive, because in learning that sometimes I'm the issue, it makes it easier to rectify those issues. Okay. The third one is never have expectations. Now, I know that sounds kind of harsh, but let me explain. Expectations will have you expecting things that people never promised. Does that make sense? And by that I mean, I realized that a lot of the issues that I had came from me placing expectations on people who never claimed that they would do these things. I had a situation with, my father, and I expected him to be a certain way. And when he was not that, I was disappointed. But the truth of the matter is that he just did not have the tools to be that kind of person. And though that doesn't necessarily excuse it, that is the reason for it. I always say a reason is never an excuse. So I still have a right to be upset about it. But the truth of the matter is that when you expect things from people who don't give you that expectation, it almost forfeits your right to be upset. So I've kind of reached the point where I no longer expect people to do things that they have not already promised. And because of that, I've actually lived a very much easier life. When you stop expecting people to do things, it kind of cuts off that need to be like, it almost cuts out that dependency that you have. Because I'm gonna be honest, I was a very codependent person. Like, I very much needed other people, even though I wouldn't admit it. But now that I've reached the point that I don't really have expectations of others, even though that sounds kind of negative, I promise it's not. But I've reached a point now where I don't have expectations of others. So it's made it easier for me to interact with people because I no longer expect them to do these grandiose things that they've proven that they can't do. So now I don't expect it. Number 4, happiness isn't a goal. I know that sounds kind of crazy because I feel like a lot of people strive to be happy. But in my spiritual journey, I've learned that happiness is an emotion. Just like sadness, just like anger, just like any other emotion. And because of that, when striving for happiness, you're essentially striving for a temporary solution. Because like any emotion, happiness is temporary, right? So I've decided to change my goal into trying to find peace within myself, within who I am and what I do. Because happiness, comes and goes. You're never gonna be happy all the time. But peace, once you find your inner peace, even when you're not happy, you'll know that happiness always comes back around, because with peace comes happiness, right? The next thing that I learned was to allow myself to feel the emotion, but to let it go. And by that, I mean, I was the kind of person who would never say how I really felt. I would never be honest about my feelings. And because of that, I would sit with my emotions for so long, like weeks. I would be angry and it would ruin my whole day. Like, I'd be so angry because I was afraid to express my emotions. And I have a lot of weird, complex feelings about my emotions and, feeling valid in them. But I've come to the conclusion through my spiritual, journey that you have got to allow yourself to feel what you're gonna feel. Emotions are natural. Everyone has them. Whether, it's anger or sadness, you should never try to suppress an emotion, right? And I've learned that it's not about what you're feeling, it's about what you do after that. You're like, okay, I'm angry. What am I going to do about it? All right, I'm sad. What am I going to do about it? I used to try to get over it. Like I have to get over it, but it's not. Emotions are not about getting over them. It's about working through them. So for me, now if I'm feeling something, I allow myself to feel it. If I'm sad, I'm going to be like, y'all, I'm sad. If I'm going through something, you're like, y'all, I'm not having a good day for today. And I saw a quote, because I have an app that kind of gives me affirmations. And it said something along the lines of, you can have a bad day and still have a good life. And that really stuck with me. So I'm kind of taking that with me now. Even if I have a bad day, I still have a good life. And now that I allow myself to sit and feel with my emotions, it's so much easier to let them go. Because when you don't allow yourself to feel your emotions, you don't get over it. It sits with you until you feel it. And then what happens is you explode. Now, I've had a couple explosions. I'm gonna let y'all know now. It never goes in your favor. It doesn't. When you explode, everybody's upset. Allow yourself to feel what you're feeling. Sit in it for a little bit. You need to cry. You angry, you need to throw a pillow, throw it. But once you get that emotion out, you leave it in there. I tell myself now, when I'm feeling something, I leave it in whatever room I'm in. If I'm upset in my room, I'll woosah and leave it in here. All right, number 6. Life is short. I didn't really need my spiritual journey to come to that conclusion, but in being spiritual, it's only fortified that for me, that life is unbearably short. It's so short. And you could wake up tomorrow and not wake up. Keep it a buck. So being spiritual, it's kind of made me feel like, realize my mortality. Like I could not be here tomorrow. I've also been through a surprising amount of situations where I have come out unscathed. And because of that, I know that my ancestors and my angels, they ride for me on some real stuff. Like the people who watch over me, the people who make sure I'm safe, that grip they got on me is tight. And I truly believe that. And even though life is short, I have made a vow to myself that I'm going to live the best life I can. Because you only get one, or so they say. That depends on if you believe in resurrection. I mean, not resurrection, if you believe in reincarnation or not. I'm kind of 50-50 on that, but whatever. For now, as far as I'm aware, you only get one life. So I'm going to live the life that I know I was born to live. And that's a good one. So I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to be who I want unapologetically. And I don't care what no one has to say about it. And that's another thing I've learned. That's not counting in the 10, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't care how nobody feels about nothing I do. Period. And you shouldn't either. This is your life. Because at the end of the day, when you gone, what you don't want to do is realize that you spent your life trying to please others when you could have been living the life that you want. Life is short. Okay? The next one, number 7. Your journey is not linear. Now, here's how this happened for me. I feel like when I started my journey, it was just like, oh my God, I'm learning so many things about myself. Oh my God, my mental health. Everything's going great. And then it was like, after that, or, you know, it's not going to be like a consistent, like, upwards hill. It's not going to be that. Sometimes, you know, because I also struggle with depression and anxiety. Sometimes you're going to have a depressive spell. Sometimes you're not going to be the best mentally. Sometimes you're going to mess up on something you've learned. You know, sometimes you're not going to, you know, lead with grace, or sometimes you're not going to be positive. It's going to happen because we're human. Humans make mistakes. But the power in your journey is knowing that your journey is not linear, but you're still making progress. Just because you're going like this, don't mean you're not still going up. Okay? Sometimes you got to make 3 steps back to take 5 steps forward. That's just the way of life. And it's kind of power in that. And that's what kind of keeps me from giving up. I always choose to push forward, because I'm gonna be honest, it's hard when you've been through so much and it has affected you mentally at this point. And now you're at the point where you're striving to be a better person. You're striving to learn more about yourself and striving to just increase your overall self-esteem and well-being. And then you kind of stumble. And those stumbles on your journey is what's going to make or break you. It's what's going to cause you, like, okay, do you really want to be a different person? Or are you okay with your suffering? Because there's a lot of people who are okay with their suffering. And they've chosen to sit where they are because though they don't want to be there, it's comfortable. I don't want to be comfortable. I want to grow. I want to change. I don't want to keep tripping over my own leg. And sometimes it's hard. I still go through my depressive spells. I still, you know, have days where I'm not feeling the best about myself. But I know that even though my journey ain't a straight line, I'm still going up. I got this. And so do you. Number 8, no one is responsible for your growth. And by that I mean, don't wait for someone to change for you to change. People are not going to change just because you want them to. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. If they don't want it, they're not going to change. So it's up to you to change. And sometimes that change is leaving. Sometimes that change is setting boundaries. Sometimes that change is keeping your distance. But you are responsible for that. You cannot put your growth as a person on anybody else's back. It's not their responsibility. It is no one's responsibility to help you grow, to help you change. Now, there are people out there that can, who will help you, who will be there for you. And when you need help in those moments, take it. But realize that it is your responsibility to choose that you are going to change. Because this road, this journey is not easy. I fight every day to be a better person. But not because anybody wants me to be, not because anybody pressured me to be, not because, you know, anybody said anything that made me want to change. No, it's because I want to. Change for you, okay? Don't put that responsibility on nobody else. Don't say, oh, well, I'll get better when you get better. No, you get better now. Because let me tell you something. When you rise above and you really do grow and you really do change, the stuff that bothered you before will not bother you. The things that used to make you angry, that used to make you irritated, the things that just used to make your skin crawl, I promise you're not going to feel that way no more. Being on this journey has given me a different outlook on people in general. And that's where I go into my next thing. Forgive those who have hurt you. I'm currently reading this book right now called The Four Agreements. I'll talk about that a little later in another video, but one of the agreements that they talk about is to be impeccable with your words. And by that, they kind of mean watch what you say, because there's a lot of power in that. And I realized that a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know the power they hold in their words. And so they say things that they don't mean. I have learned that holding a grudge does nothing but make you bitter. Because I was the type of person, I held grudges. I've remembered every person that's ever bullied me. I remember their first and last name. I remember what they said. I remember how old I was when they said it. I was the type to hold a grudge. I sure was. If you did something to me, I would never let you live it down, because I felt like I didn't deserve it. You said this to me and didn't think about how it was going to affect me. How could you? But now I kind of come to the realization you're human. That's why. Unfortunately, human beings don't understand the power of their words, especially loved ones. They don't get it. They don't understand. And you wouldn't really know unless you learned. That's not an excuse, of course. That doesn't make it okay. However, I understand. I also realize that a lot of people hurt people when they're hurt. A lot of people hurt people when they're jealous, when they're angry, when they're sad. All of these things. 9 times out of 10, when people hurt you, it don't have nothing to do with you. And honestly, this one is probably the hardest one on this list. To forgive those who have hurt me. Because I spent a lot of my life hurt. Spent a lot of my life sad and feeling wronged and bitter. Really, really bitter. But I'm letting that go. Not for them. Because a lot of people will want you to forgive them for their sake. Don't ever forgive somebody because they pressure you into forgiving them. Don't ever, ever do that. Forgive someone because you don't want them to have that power over you. Forgive someone because you want to let that person go. Forgive someone so that you can move on. So I'm gonna say it personally in this video. To those who I haven't said it before, I'm gonna say it now. To all those who have hurt me, who have done me wrong, who made me feel less than, I forgive you. And I wish you nothing but love and light and happiness that leads me to my last one. Nothing is everything. Nothing we go through is worth you. You are everything, and nothing is worth that. So remember,